Hello, Global Theater. My name is Jerry Fielka. Today's March 31, 2023. We want to thank Rob Grant and his amazing podcast, I'm Probably Wrong About Everything. It's an honor and a pleasure to be here with Antony Cairns. Tony, where in the heck you calling in from?
I'm actually in New York at the moment, but I'm usually based in London. But
First,
you caught me when I'm stateside.
I know you're London centric with your art, and I appreciate it. The first question, Tony, is what is the best thing for a human being?
The best thing for a human being. I mean, I guess it would be water. Isn't water life? Sure.
I like that. And I like the word you use, guess, because that's what I'm after, your hunch, your guess, your intuition. What's your favorite form of information, how it comes into you?
Favorite form of information? Maybe like what you say, we say like word of mouth, or like heard it on the grapevine. I just like hearing things from other people, maybe.
I like that a lot. We call that phatic communication. It's beautiful. Why do you think humans collect or gather information?
Uh, well, it's maybe I'm answering quite basic, but isn't it to survive? It's like survival instinct. So deep down, you learn things because it's going to help you survive or the next generation.
That's the answer I get the most. I appreciate that. But do you think this need or want to collect information is more innate in us or more invented by us?
I guess I'd go more with innate, just it's already there. I don't think we invented it. I think it's in our DNA.
Do thoughts create emotions?
Do thoughts create emotions? Yeah, totally. I mean, yeah, I guess they would. Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Sorry.
Yeah,
Yeah, you need me to talk a bit louder. Sorry. I started to
no, you're coming in loud and clear. Fill in the blank, Tony. I don't know what I think until
I don't know what I think until I know what I'm thinking.
And can humans think without language?
Wow. I mean, yes. I'd imagine yes. I don't know. It wouldn't be the same idea that we have as our brains thinking it now, but I guess it would be the same. I just think overall we could. It wouldn't be as we could like we couldn't even perceive what it would be like because we think through language now. But I guess you could think through without language, but I couldn't perceive how that would be.
Well, Chomsky says a language is not just words, it's a culture, a tradition, a unification of community, a whole history that creates what a community is. Tony, what do you do when language doesn't work? When language breaks down, what do you do?
Well, uh, I mean, when language breaks down, unfortunately, I think people become quite base, don't they? They become quite animalistic. It's like 2001, they just start hitting things. I mean, a lot of the time, if language breaks down, it becomes more physical. So you try to express things through your body. So I guess, yeah, you touch things, you feel things, you bash things, or you start to use your body instead.
Yeah. Your observations of humans in general, are we more thinking beings or more feeling beings?
Thinking and feeling isn't, you already asked the question, aren't they linked? So isn't it the same? So we'd be both, wouldn't we? We'd be both if we had feelings, it's because we were thinking about them. So isn't it both? Could you have one without the other? Though you asked those type of questions, and I don't think we got to an answer. So I guess
No, I think saying both is totally fine. Some of my questions are either or. It doesn't mean you have to.
Yeah, for sure, for sure.
It's just prompts for, like Bridget Bardot says, I don't think when I make love. I'm like, good luck. How can you stop thinking? Like meditators say, I'm gonna think about not thinking. So these are two questions from Alan Turing in the 1950s. Is thinking a function of the soul?
It's thinking a function of the soul. Well, I guess we'd like to believe it is, but I'm not really sure. I mean, it's think. Yeah, I just have no answer to that. You could question that for a while, couldn't you? These type of philosophical kind of. It's just a question, but of course, it's quite quite a deep thing. So I couldn't really even comprehend that at the moment.
That's all right. And don't feel you're obliged. Rebecca Solnit said so well. Just because I'm asked a question doesn't mean I have to answer it. You're not, that's totally fine to say, I don't know. And the second Turing question is, can machines think?
Yeah, that's an interesting question. And I mean, I've read a lot of cyberpunk and a lot of Philip K. Dick and things like that. And, do androids dream of electric sheep? It's an interesting question. I don't know. Can they think? It's getting there, isn't there? It's with all these chat bots and AI drawing machines and things like that. I mean, they're starting to think, but is it a controlled way of thinking? Controlled by who? But do we, can machines think? I think possibly yes, they can. They're being taught how to think. I mean, there is this idea of everything is all just numbers with machines, so there comes to an end, and thinking is meant to be infinite. So it's not exactly the same type of thinking as a human being, but it might even surpass it at some point.
Good. Tony, do you more pursue happiness or more pursue meaning?
Happiness, because I don't know. Yeah, I don't really look for meaning in things. Definitely happiness.
And do you think the brain more detects consciousness or creates consciousness? Like, is consciousness there bubbling away and we're detecting it, or are we more creating it?
Definitely creating it there, consciousness, really, no?
Yeah.
In my opinion, I'd think so. Is it bubbling away? No, I think it's all being created in our heads.
Cool. What's faster, speed of light or speed of thought?
Speed of thought. Is there a time frame for speed of thought? I know they can tell you how fast the speed of light is, but I don't know about the speed of thought. I'm not sure, I'm not sure about the speed of thought. Have they projected it out there and seen how far it goes, how quickly? I'd have to say the speed of light, because we know how fast it goes.
Cool. Audre Lorde, the poet, said you can't dismantle the master's house using the master's tools. Yvonne Rayner responded and said, you can if you expose the tools. What new tool do you suggest?
To take down the master's house, a new tool. Which one would I suggest? I have to think about that a second. Not really sure. I'm not really sure there are any tools, aren't they already? There's too many made by the man. So I couldn't answer that one either.
But let's drop the word new. Just what tool do you gravitate towards, whether it's dismantling the master's house or not?
Yeah, I mean, it would be knowledge, wouldn't it? It would be like knowledge, education, people learning.
I like that.
Maybe looking forward, though, not always looking backwards, which is quite hard. You've got to teach people things, but without getting stuck on the past, because so many mistakes. So you've got to be quite positive and progressive.
I like that. We call that feed forward. It's like McLuhan called it we walk forward, rear view mirrorism. We keep looking in the rear view mirror. That was good. What new toy do you suggest?
What new toy?
Yeah. What new toy would you suggest or gravitate towards?
New toy. I mean, I don't know. It's all about this the virtual, the 3D. You know, this really immersive reality. So I kind of would gravitate towards that. I guess I'm a little bit old to maybe understand it, but when you say toy, I think of children or the youth, and I think that they're crazy interested in, you know, these in the virtual world. So I'm kind of, you know, I'd gravitate towards having interest in understanding that and how you can have fun virtually, you know, where you immerse yourself, 3D worlds and things like that. So I'd be kind of into checking that out. Apparently they're meant to start opening up all these new type of arcades again, you know, with these 3D ones and, you know, obviously things like that. So I'd totally be into that.
What do you worry about when you go to bed at night?
Boring things like plumbing for the house and you know, you know, things like that. What do you know? Unfortunately, yeah, I have no time to think of the deeper meanings of the world. It's more boring things before bed. You know, like do I need to get a new fridge or something like that? You know.
Yeah. Practical.
Domestication, yeah.
Yep. Well, McLuhan learned from the poet Ezra Pound that artists are the antenna of the race. They're broadcasting and detecting the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, so we might be able to cope with what we don't like about the inventions. Just like your willingness to go along with 3D or new digital technologies. McLuhan, you know, they're saying that the artist, so, you know, Marshall said the artists are the antenna of the race. Why do we ignore the hidden psychic effects of our inventions, even though the artists are broadcasting them to us?
Well, I don't know. In today's type of world, we'd ignore it for like capitalist reasons, wouldn't we? We'd ignore it because if it's successful, if it can, it doesn't matter that it wastes people's time or anything. If it, you know, if one person can sell it to the other person, then that's, you know, that's the world we live in today. So you can obviously call that a reason why people look past it. You know, look past the issues that social media causes, and you know what the metaverse might do is because they want, you know, they want to monetize it and just they don't really think too far ahead into the future, or they don't really care about the masses that much. So therefore it all gets lost.
It's a great observation. I rarely get that, Tony. I appreciate it. My friend calls that commodity, the commodification. So do artists have moral obligation?
In that context, or just in any context?
Yeah, again, you put it in the context you want. Do artists have moral obligation into the context you want to put it in?
I don't think so. I think an artist has no obligation to anything. You know, a lot of artists follow their own mantras or define or make their own rules. you know, but overall, an artist is somebody who just makes art, you know, and that doesn't have to follow, or does it have to follow rules of art or something like that? I guess it is a bit more tricky, but overall, I don't think they're obliged to do anything apart from make things. But is that an obligation to be an artist? It's a tricky one. I went last night to a talk of at Printed Matter, which is like a bookshop, photo bookshop in New York, and it was all about the artist group called Black Mask. They were then called Up Against the Wall Motherfuckers.
Yeah.
Like yeah, and they were really interesting because, you know, quite kind of like a lot of anarchy within their type of ideas, and they were kind of anti everything. You know, they weren't. They were anti-artist and anti-artist, and you know, I just, you know, it was really interesting. So then you put in a question like that to that, you know, did they have any obligation? I guess they were trying not to have any obligation, but overall, I guess they did follow things like, you know, situationist or something like that. So it was quite interesting. But overall, I would think that an artist must just be, yeah, I don't know. But then there's that obligation again. It's kind of a catch-22. I'd imagine that, yeah, you're obliged to do something as an artist. Yeah, I guess you are.
Well, Tony, it's amazing you evoke the great Tony Conrad said, artists break rules that haven't even been made yet. That's like the job of the artist, is to break the rules that haven't even been made. But I'm curious, since you brought up this word anarchy, Utah Phillips is a activist folk singer. He said anarchy is making rules for yourself and not other people. Who's entitled to make the rules?
I mean, who's entitled to make the rules? It's anybody who can get another person to follow their set of rules. You know, that's the world we live in. It's a tribal world. You know, you can make up any crazy rules. It's if people start following them, then you know you're moving forward, or you're moving somewhere. make up a load of set of rules and nobody follows them, you know, then I don't know, it's not exactly the same thing.
It's a good answer. Are you more afraid of new ideas or more afraid of old ideas?
I'm not sure there are too many new ideas out there, so I'm afraid of yeah, like I say, there aren't that many new ideas out there, are there really?
Yeah.
You know, when we had this whole COVID pandemic and stuff, it was just amazing the way the whole world it pulled out the, you know, the playbook from the 1900s, or the last time we had a pandemic. And, you know, really that was quite interesting to think, wow, there are, you know, they had to go back to an old idea. There were no new ideas then when the world was in a big global pandemic. So maybe there aren't that many new ideas to be afraid of.
Can you conjure up your earliest memory ever, or one of them?
Yeah, I can kind of have a memory of walking down the stairs in the first house I lived in. I think I used to maybe have dreams or sleepwalk a bit, or dreamt that I slept walk around that house. So I remember kind of running up and down the stairs of it from when I was quite young. Pretty simple.
Is memory more a curse or more a blessing?
It's definitely more of a blessing. I mean, yeah, if you know, if you accidentally run somebody over or something like that, I guess, you know, you don't want to always have to remember that. But But overall, if you, I guess, if you look after your life and stuff, then memories generally are a good thing, you know, unless you're like a terrible person, then you maybe one of those, but maybe you enjoy those memories as well. I don't know. So memories,
Yeah.
they've got to be a good thing. They've got to be more of a good thing than a bad thing.
Tell me someone within your immediate family, then outside your immediate family, who had an impact on you, kind of like a role model. And what specifically was that impact?
Somebody in my family as a role model.
Yeah, if someone in your family who had an impact on you, what was that specific impact?
Uh, I mean, it's always quite classic. It's going to be somebody like my mum or my dad or my brother or my cat. We had cats. Yeah, let's choose the cat. I used to love this.
Good. I like that. So, what do you think you got from your cat? What's some sort of impact you got from it?
Just to appreciate nature. The cat, every time it rained, the cat wanted to go outside, which was a strange thing because it was raining. And it
Yeah.
just wanted to go outside the door and sit on the doorstep. So it didn't really get wet, but just sit and watch the rain from the doorstep. And from when I was quite young, I always thought like, oh, like, you know, it was just appreciating the rain. It was appreciating just like nature and what was happening. I thought, oh, that was nice. So I learned that from my cat, you know, to have some patience.
That's beautiful, man. And then outside your immediate family, same question.
Outside immediate family, then it would just be like friends from high school or something, you know, just like not particularly one person, but just, you know, lots of people I've known from when I was being a teenager and stuff, you know, that whole kind of gang of people, just all of them, and keeping close to them even till you get older and having the same life experiences with people. So just living, growing up with people, but not particularly one, because, you know, it takes like a whole village to, you know, bring somebody up and things like that. That's what they say. So, you know, yeah, just my whole friend group from when I was throughout my teenage years.
I like that. Did your parents raise you a particular religion?
Yeah, I mean, Christian. My mum was Christian, so a bit of Christian religion there.
Do you pray?
I don't really pray. I mean, you know, sometimes, you know, at special occasions, maybe with my mum if she would ask me to, but I don't pray myself in any situation.
Tony, if God exists, what would you like God to say to you after you die?
Nothing. It's fine. He must be busy. I don't need any conversations with God.
Do evil people exist, or does evil use people as a vehicle?
No. I think evil people exist, and, you know, you're not blaming that on some overall evil spirit or moon or something like that.
The really hidden question is how do you advise someone to deal with an enemy? So Alan Watts says, if you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them. Coppola stole from the samurai and the mob. Keep your friends close and your enemies closer.
Mm.
JFK said, forgive your enemy, but don't forget their name. And Fellini says, I need an enemy. So it's a lot of thoughts. The basic question is, how do you, Tony, advise someone to deal with an enemy? But first, how would you respond to Alan Watts? If you acknowledge your enemy, you empower them.
Yeah, well, that type of thing, and most of them are kind of self-referential questions, aren't they? They're kind of trying to tell the person that having an enemy, not having an enemy, it's all on you. It's all about the self anyway. So, you know, it doesn't really matter about this enemy person. It's all about you anyway, isn't it? And it's all about your spirit and how you deal with them. So the answer to the question about empowering your enemy is yeah, I kind of totally agree. Really, it's true. If you let them control your emotions, then they're already winning. So I kind of agree with that statement.
Yeah. And Nassim Taleb said an amazing thing. Games were created to give non-heroes the illusion of winning. In real life, we don't know who wins or loses, but we can tell who is a hero. When I told that to someone, they said villains don't think they are bad. They want control. Heroes want freedom. And Gregory Bateson, the anthropologist, says if the criminal gets caught, do they go, wow, my criminal skills weren't up to skill that day? Or do they go, wow, I did something morally or socially wrong? So the basic question, Tony, is does punishment work?
Does punishment work? I mean, I think to a certain extent punishment works, but it's you know, when is that punishment justified, you know, and what is the punishment? So I guess it could work in some particular cases, but in other cases, is it justified, the punishment? So there's too many variables to really understand and answer any question like that.
Yeah. James Joyce was the first projectionist in Dublin about 100 years ago. He basically checked out. He said, this is stupid. Why should I go inside a building and see a movie of a tree when I can go outside and see a real tree? Years later, Faulkner said, sometimes the best fiction is more true than journalism. Why do we have to recreate things in order to get them? Why do we have to go to a theatrical play of people acting out life? Why don't we just live life?
Because yeah, sometimes you need to see the world through somebody else's eyes, you know, and that's what theater and entertainment is. It's you know, you can go outside and look at a tree, but some people don't know how to appreciate that tree. So that's what people do when they make films or plays and things like that. They you know, they're good at showing how a tree can look beautiful, so they try and teach people through, you know, their film or whatever that, look, this is a beautiful tree, and you know, why is it beautiful? It's beautiful because this and that, and you know, and sometimes people need that. Sometimes people, they don't know how to appreciate, so they have to learn.
Yeah.
That's what things are. Yeah.
Well, tell me about your learning process in pursuing art and photography as a career or as a calling. Did you, just what was the tipping point for you to say, this is what I want to do? Did you go to art school? Did your parents raise you going to art museums? Just sort of walk me through briefly how you got to that point where you said, I'm going to pursue this.
Yeah, I mean, from quite a young age, I always wanted to like play sports. I mean, I guess you always get asked what you want to do for a living. I would have always said I'll be a football player or something like that. That's soccer player. And then, then when you're like about 15, 16, that's a bit too late. So, yeah, the kind of second thing I wanted to do was to be an artist, So I always wanted to be a photographer, mainly a photographer from when I was about 15. And I was quite lucky to have it at high school and then college and then university. So I've really been doing it for quite a while. So, that's all I've ever studied. So I'd be quite disappointed in myself if I wasn't a photographer because I've been learning about it for a while. So, you know, it's that's kind of. And was there any other deeper reason? I mean, not really. I always liked photography as because of its kind of its art, but it had quite a link to technology and a lot of apparatus. So I really liked that side of photography as opposed to just having a blank canvas and drawing something. I like the fact that you would take film and develop it in the darkroom and things like that. So yeah, that's what kind of got me into it.
So were there certain photographs or photographers that really had that impact, or you were just seeing photographs in magazines and books, or were you seeing fine art photography that really, you know, sort of led you down that path? I mean, maybe it's both, but is there any
of everything? I mean, it was honestly, yes, you know, studying it from 15, I was shown lots of different. I always liked imagery of London because I was from London, so I really liked historical images of the city or current images of the city. I like imagery of cities. I like big cities, so I've always kind of liked and been interested in images of the city. So that's mainly what I kind of like looking at and investigating how people take pictures of big places, big metropolis and stuff like that. So yeah, that's kind of where I've always been focused for quite a while. And my taste hasn't really changed or evolved that much.
Well, I'm glad you said the word taste because I'm curious. My friend says in music, there's 3 T's: technique, theory, and taste. So, you know, theory is you've learned the theories of photography. Technique, you've learned the technique of framing. How does one acquire taste?
Well, that's just your overall, isn't it? It's your taste is it's acquired a bit by your friends. Like this, going back to the first question, how do you get information? I said like word of mouth, or you know, so taste is also it's the same. It's through your friends, through what you're doing, what you surround yourself by. So it's kind of mirrored, isn't it? It's mirrored within everything you do. Really, that is your taste. You know, so everything you do or you've made your life, you know, how you live your life decides your kind of taste. And of course, it always goes back to family, but mainly who you're surrounded by, other people. Your taste
Yeah.
is friends' taste a bit, you know, and especially when you're younger, peer pressure a bit. Sometimes, you know, oh, do you like that band? You just kind of say, yeah. You might hate, you know, or you're just too young. You know, sometimes you're naive. Sometimes you take other people's tastes on. You know, so there's many factors. I guess the older you get, you know, your tastes change or they become more refined, and or I don't know, but that's the thing, isn't it? They say that every 7 years your actual, when it comes to eating, they say every 7 years your kind of palate taste change. You know, I'm not quite sure of the kind of science behind it, but they do say that every 7 years you know. You may not like eating eggs, but then after 7 years, you suddenly decide you like eating eggs.
That seems to resonate with the 7-year itch, you know, when you have relationships too. But that was good. I like family and friends. Um, there's another thing about photography that I'm interested in is your framing aesthetic. You know how photographers or filmmakers will go like this. What informs your framing aesthetic? How, where did it come from? What's sort of the roots of how you frame your photograph?
Ooh, I lost you. Oh no, you're there. Yeah. Or how do you frame an image? I guess it's. I guess sometimes it's already there. You know, it's already there in your mind what you're looking for. So you've already got that image like in your mind at the back of your eye. So when you're then looking around or taking pictures, you're just trying to kind of recreate what you've already seen. So for me personally, yeah, it's like that. So I already know what I kind of want. So then walking around the city with a camera is just about, yeah, just kind of, yeah, just shoot until you find it. Or, you know, for me, I always quite like a little bit looking up at the buildings or something. So it's always this kind of angle. It's definitely not looking down. I'm more looking up. So, you know, there's a few technical things about it, how you'd like to frame it. But overall, I think it's framed way before. The idea is already there. So the picture is not about when you're how to frame a picture. It's already there, the idea, isn't it? So you're just trying to recreate that. I have this idea as well about photographers as well, that there's always a point where they've taken their best photograph and basically all they ever do after that is try and recreate that photograph again. Like same but different, you know. It doesn't have to be, you know, it's not literally they're trying to re-photograph that, but they're just trying to get that feeling again, you know.
Yeah.
And I think that's a lot with photography, with artists as well. Paint an amazing picture and then they want to do it again, you know. They want to have that same feeling. It's not always that easy though.
Yeah, I think you're correct. Same with filmmakers, poets, literature. It's very similar to that peak epiphany and trying to reach it. But, you know, Jean Cocteau had an interesting thing. They asked him how he developed his framing aesthetic. And he said it's the way they put the knife and fork on the dinner table that forms the framing aesthetic. And then, you know, someone comes along like Robert Frank and he frames like this, you know, off kilter. Because I think most people develop framing aesthetic by the history of painters and previous photographers. That
Yeah.
we don't have control. Like we didn't have this world where there weren't photographers and painters to establish how much they affected our sensibility of framing. And then who comes along and frames like this and they go, well, wait, that framing isn't correct, you know. Who's the gatekeepers, you know, for the museums and the galleries?
Yeah, I mean it's true, but there's always a reference to something. It's all, you know, it's all been done before. It's true. You probably look back always into painting, you know, the Dutch and the ideas of perspective that they, you know, in the 1400s, they really kind of are quite important when in terms of photography and filmmaking and ideas of perspective and angles and things like that. I mean, it still kind of evolves though. I mean, it's been evolving, hasn't it now? I mean, what with all the cameras on the phones today, you know, everything is now very portrait orientated, very thin, you know, these, you know, so traditional ideas of framing have evolved a lot more kind of head cam via the GoPro and things like that, body cam stuff. So, you know, a lot of framing is quite interestingly evolving through technology of photography and film. You know, a lot of like even basic, everyone's got a doorbell camera that has a doorbell camera. So then, you know, and they're usually quite terrible to frame. You know, so it's become quite lazy. But there's a lot things move on through technology, and you know, so there has been slight tweaks.
Yeah.
It has moved on from the knife and fork perspective a little bit.
Yeah.
But worse in a way, probably.
Well, a screenwriting teacher told me great art is when you can clearly see the intention of the maker. Kubrick says the opposite. Great art is when you can clearly not see the intention of the maker. What role does intention play in your creative process when you're making a piece of art or shooting a photograph?
I think there's a lot of intention in what I'm trying to do. So, but is it also a bit hidden? I mean, there's also the possibility that there's a lot of intention from me, but that intention isn't seen by the viewer. So, I mean, I work with a lot of intention. I know exactly how I want the pieces to look in the end, and but does the viewer need to understand every part of it? I don't know. That's not really my job to know what the audience should think of the work. I can only push them a certain way, and I guess I do try and do that. But also, I do leave it open for their own interpretation.
Well, that's good, Tony. You must have ESP, because the next question is, Duchamp said there's no art without an audience. How much do you think of your viewer when you're making your art?
Yeah, I mean, there is, I do think about them a bit, maybe not lots, but a bit. You definitely, it's not thinking of the audience, maybe it's thinking of the aesthetic that I want, so how I want my work to look. I guess you do put the audience in there at some point, how you want to be seen. So, I mean, they're there, but it can, you can't think about them too much, I think. You just have to understand that if you're making an artwork, it's going to maybe be seen by other people and they might have a judgment. And do you want them to have a positive or negative judgment? You can only kind of guess, but you have to have a bit of an idea of what you think they're going to think. That's what I think.
Yeah, Leonard Cohen says it interesting. The only way you can sell a concert is to put yourself at risk. And if you don't do that, people know. What role does risk play in your creative process making art?
Yeah, I mean, it's the same. It's not putting on a concert, but it's putting on an exhibition. You know, it's always a risk. You know, you risk that nobody's going to come. You risk that they're going to come and hate it. You risk that, you know, you have to do some work. You know, you risk, and is it all for nothing? So there's definitely risk when you put on a show, just like the Leonard Cohen quote. But you know, it's a necessity, isn't it? Of if you want to be an artist, then you have to take that risk. You have to, you know, you have to start somewhere. Otherwise, you know, you're not going to be seen. You know, you're going to be like the tree that falls down in the forest when nobody's there. So, you know, you want people to see it. You want people to be there. So you want it to happen. I guess that's my
What is, yeah, that what does courage mean to you now?
Courage.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's meant the same as it always means. No, somebody being brave. I mean, and has that changed? I don't think so. Courage is a time. It's just timeless, isn't it? It can be quite timeless. So it means as it was always meant to me, courage.
Yeah. In regards to that, Viola Spolin said, if the audience cannot see your struggle to achieve something, they cannot root for you to achieve it.
I don't think that's true. I don't think that's true. Sometimes I think it's the opposite. I think that people don't want to see the struggle of an artist. They just want to see the success.
Yeah.
They don't want to hear. That's why you have to work with gallery. Or, you know, as an artist, sometimes you don't want to talk about how difficult or how long or hard it is to make the work, or it was to make the work, or, oh, yeah, I did this 10 times and it failed. Then I did it another 5 times and it failed. I find that people, they don't want to hear that. And maybe I don't want to hear it, but if somebody was telling me, now, of course, I have compassion for my fellow artists. I know how hard it is to make things, but I understand that other people, they don't want to hear that. They just want to see the product, the success. So yeah, definitely. There is always a struggle, but I think most people, they don't want to hear about it.
Yeah, I like you saying that, Tony. It's your honesty really resonates with me because I saw the great experimental filmmaker Ken Jacobs speak once, and someone said, "How did you do that?" And he goes, "I'm not telling."
Yeah.
and you know, I think great art is when it fucks your shit up and it thinks that, you know, like I'm gonna go home and try. That looks simple. I can do that, you know.
Yeah. That is it. Yeah, totally. Yeah, that's for sure. I like that. When I go and see something and it's, I mean, I like it when it's clean and everything's. I like it when it's technically really nice, and then you think it's simple, but you just know that there's a lot of hard work in got it.
Yeah.
Got it. Yeah, I like that. I like hardworking artists, and that doesn't mean to say that they've had to like build a wall with 1,000 bricks or something. They maybe they get somebody else to do it all and stuff. But I like hardworking artists, and that can be research, that can be just thinking about things and getting to an idea. It's just interesting.
Well, that begs the question, where did you get your work ethic from?
Um, yeah, I just think from starting at a young age, high school, learning photography back then was quite hard work, wasn't it? With all the developing and having to do a lot of manual stuff in the darkroom. So even though it's turned a lot more digital and you can do things a lot quicker now, I'd learned in the 90s, so I learned a little bit the more manual labor ways of doing things. So just that type of thing of having patience within photography. So I think that, yeah, hardworking. I'm not so sure it's hardworking. I like to do quite a lot of things myself as well. So it's like patience, and I wouldn't call it hard work. Sometimes it's nice to do repetitive actions.
Yeah.
Cutting 1,000 bits of paper or something, or pinning 500 punch cards. I quite like these repetitive things. So I guess they are hard work, but it's also I don't like meditate or anything like that, but I can feel quite at peace when I'm doing certain monotonous things like printing in the dark room or something like that. I like that type of thing. Gives me a little bit of peace and calm.
Do you think you got this work ethic from your parents at all?
No, I don't think so. They had different ideas of how they did their work, so I don't think so. No.
In back to that changeover from analog to digital, so you were starting your career shooting film and developing it, and then digital came in, or you had the choice right off the bat?
No, exactly that. So like from about 14, so in like 1994, so it was mainly black and white and color film for like 6 or 7 years, and then digital started to take over when I was at university. So I had to learn the real, like, more black and white dark room, and I wanted to be a black and white fine art printer coming out of university, but I came out to just when they were all kind of closing the dark room. So in fact, I went to be like, oh, can I get a job? And they're like, oh, no, but you can have this in larger because we don't need it anymore. So, it was kind of a bit like that. So that's when I realized that it was more interesting to do a bit more experimentation in the dark room. And when I work and when I made photographic prints, I made them really look and feel like they were made in the dark room as a photograph in the traditional chemical-based way. Not like because I was anti-digital. It's just I wasn't ready to let go of what I was learning, you know.
Yeah.
So it just took me a while to kind of catch up.
Very good, Tony. And McLuhan says everything we invent extends some humanness or human sensorium, like knife and fork extend our teeth. The shutter in a camera is extension of our eyelid. Even non-tangible, maybe philosophy or religion's extension of consciousness. What does the camera, whether it's analog or digital, extend for you? What humanness does it extend for you?
What humanness? Yeah, I like the camera that you can muck around with the aperture. You can let more light in. I like the idea that sometimes when you're kind of out at night, it can seem dark. Your eyes, they adjust, you know, and I quite like the way a camera can do that as well. But you can take it further, you know.
Yeah.
The long exposure, and you can make the night seem like daytime because you let so much light in, or you can capture a building being built on a long exposure for over a year or something. So I like how that can muck around with space and time, basically. So the camera has this ability to make time a little bit more malleable. Time and light, you know.
That's good. I'm curious because some people would say 35 millimeter film is more like an obsolete media, and you're saying, yeah, I can do both analog and digital. But tell me the route on you discovering the pixel video camera, because this came out from 87 to 89, and my festival is now 33 years old. People said that thing's going to be obsolete in 10 years, and artists gravitated towards it. And I was amazed that I found you in another country, because pixels usually more in America. We've had entries from France and England in the past, but they're minimal. And I'm curious, you finding the pixel camera, how did you discover it, and what attracts you to pixel vision?
It was quite simple. I was doing some other project using some other kind of retro technology, and I came across the camera, and the main reason that I got myself one was because it shot exclusively black and white.
Yeah.
Onto magnetic tape. Now I shoot mainly. I've just started shooting color, but for the last 10, 15 years, I shoot only as black and white film, like 35mm film. So I'm always interested in bits of technology that are only black and white, which are usually quite old things, right? So I was instantly interested to find something in the 80s that was exclusively black and white. It seemed really strange. Obviously, when I got one, it was really, really like, it barely worked because it was, it's already 25, 30 years old or something. When I first got one about 7 or 8 years ago. But it was actually through talking with a friend who showed me quite a famous Japanese photographer called Daido Moriyama. And he shot some film of around Shinjuku area, a very famous area in Tokyo. And he shot all this film where he was on the back of his friend's motorcycle, and he shot it really low down, and they were going really fast, and it was really blurry and abstract and didn't really show much. And I think he didn't like it at first, but then after years, he went back and re-looked at it and was just like, oh, he just liked it because it was like recording the moment, but really showed nothing, And I quite like that about the Pixel 2000 is that it's you're recording something. It's a factual record of whatever you're filming, but it can't help but just create noise. The apparatus just gets in the way so much, The recording device, it just gets in the way, it becomes so part of it. So I just, it's just part of what I've been doing, where I'm interested in actually the apparatus being almost as important as what you're taking a picture of, you know, and in some cases even more important, you know.
Yeah, that was really well put. How do you spell the Japanese artist's last name? M.
Moriyama, Moriyama.
Thank you. Yes, I appreciate that.
Yeah.
And it's curious because that's what Duchamp said. Uh, like something like people who can do art with, more primitive tools. He actually complimented them that we don't need. You can do art with a paper and pencil. You don't have to have many colors in an oil
Yeah.
brush and a canvas, or like you don't need a 35 millimeter film crew with $1 million budget to make a movie.
Yeah, yeah, of course.
Yeah, and then we call it lo-fi hijinks. So it's been fun seeing how the pixel camera has evolved, because we started pre the internet.
Yeah, God,
There was no internet. And one of my favorite comments you might appreciate is someone came up to me after the festival one year and say, "Oh, I get it. Um, it's a kid's toy, and most artists are trying to be kid-like and innocent, and it's a kid's toy. So if you try to do something profound, it might not come off. But if you try to be playful like a kid, it could come off as being profound."
I like that. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So it's interesting, again, the motive of the artist, whether they're trying to make something that's content, or they trying to reveal the form and the content. It's that form and content issue. How much is your finger pointing at the canvas? Are you looking at the finger or the canvas or what's painted on the canvas?
Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
No, it is. It's interesting, but I mean, yeah, it's just a great camera, but and it suited my aesthetic for the time, and and I was quite pleased to make a film, as I like to call it. It's a very abstract bit of work, but it is a film, and it's going to be in your festival next year.
Yeah, no, this year I really appreciate it.
Yeah, sorry, yeah, I missed it last year. That's
Don't
right.
be sorry, man. We're honored to have you. We've had so many arrange from 5-year-old kids to Hollywood professionals. So we never distinguish. Here's the kids part. Here's the pro part. It's all mushed together. So that's partly.
It'll be great. Yeah, it'll be great.
Now, Michael Apted, the filmmaker, I spoke with him 40 years ago. I asked him, why do rock video editors feel so obliged to edit fast? Most people don't know Abel Gance invented rapid montage in 1922 in France, but in the 80s it flourished because of MTV. And Michael said, because we've learned to take in information faster. So, Tony, I ask you, with a bias, this question is, can humans literally learn to take in information faster, or are we just brainwashed? We believe we can.
Yeah, it's probably more that we're brainwashed and we believe we can take in information fast. I mean, it's all very comfortable, isn't it? How we take in information. I guess we learn it from, from birth and things like that. But I think we're probably capable of a lot more, aren't we?
Well, is it literally possible to multitask?
Yeah. I think it is possible to multitask. Aren't women better than men at it? Aren't they better at it? But I'm not very good at it.
What's more important, conviction or compromise?
Probably compromise. You have to work with people, and whether you're right or not, sometimes isn't always the end goal. So compromise more than conviction.
There's no right or wrong answers to any of these questions, but that one you got right, dude.
Yeah, totally.
You've accomplished a lot, Tony. Rate these three elements: luck, skill, and ambition. What played the biggest role, second and third?
Luck, skill, ambition. Yeah, it's good question. Maybe ambition, luck, skill.
T.S. Eliot said poetry is outing your inner dialogue. What language is your inner dialogue in?
English. I mean, is that what you mean?
Yeah, no, more metaphorically, what form is your inner consciousness in?
Well, I don't know. It's myself, isn't it? It's the private me that you can't really let anybody else know about. I guess, you know.
That again, it anticipates the next question beautifully. Two of my film heroes have the mantra. George Manupelli says, ignore yourself. Jonas Mekas says, there is no self-expression. And Cecil Taylor, the great jazz pianist, said, I'm just a vehicle and this stuff just comes through me. Is art making more self-expression or more a vehicle for whatever technologies, environments, and culture are dominant?
I mean, again, yeah, it's these questions could be spoke about for hours because there's no yes or no answer, you know, and there's no right or wrong, and it's a bit of both, isn't it? It's a bit of everything. You know, artists use the technologies that are available to them, and they use any technology that has been made how to make art all the way through the history, you know, of time. So technology and art are intrinsically linked, and then the consciousness of an artist also goes into what tools they would use. So it's all interlinked, and you know, could talk about that for a long time and not really come to any sort of conclusion.
Can art making be egoless?
I mean, no, not really egoless. Has to be some sort of ego there, I suppose. Even if it's, you know, to be selfless, there's ego in that, isn't there? So no, there has to be some sort of ego when you're making art, I think.
What was the motive of the cave artist? Your guess or hunch?
Yeah, I think it goes back to one of your first questions about how humans get information, and it was just simple information, relaying information to the next people, the next of kin, the next of the tribe back then, whoever the next person who visited the cave, it was telling them something. So it was like leaving a bit of information. I don't think it was very artistic. Oh well, some of them though, they really think that some were just there as art. So I think it's information though, really.
That's good.
Yeah,
I like, Tony. I keep going back to your line about you observing your cat watching nature. So, you know, one answer was, what's the motive of the cave artist? This guy said, to keep people in the cave, which was funny because it's like, then if you go to see what's called biomimicry is how humans mimic nature. So you were sort of capturing this sense from your cat of observing. And that's like you were biomimicry. That was biomimicry. So it's like, what do cave artists do? They want to keep people in their caves so that they won't leave. But who knows? Is perception reality?
Again, one of those questions that can't quite be answered just like that. Is perception reality? In some ways, isn't there like a story, you know, like isn't there there's always interesting questions of people and the color blue and the perception of the color blue, right? Like,
Yeah.
and that's so, you know, and I've read into that a bit, and you know, there's no, you know, there's just endless, no real answer. They say that when like Christopher Columbus or whoever was coming, when the Spanish were coming to the Americas the first time, that the Native American Indians, you know, they couldn't see the ships. All they could see was the waves, because they'd never seen ships like that before. So they couldn't perceive them, because for them, they weren't part of their reality. So they couldn't see them. So there are like those type of ideas that give you maybe, you know, that lean towards one side or the other. But really, I'm not really sure.
I love that bringing up blue too. I have a whole lecture on the color blue, you know, Kandinsky's theories, Wilhelm Reich, even Leni Riefenstahl. It goes on and on. So McLuhan probed Finnegan's Wake by James Joyce, saying that artists dream awake. Everyone has this ability to create scenarios in the middle of the night in dream. But artists also use this ability to dream awake. Have dreams played a role in your creative process?
Yeah, I think so. And yeah, this idea of dreaming awake, I think that obviously a lot of art, and a lot of art that I like or have liked, you know, has been made when the artist is not quite in a 9 a.m. just had a coffee type of state of mind, you know. They're more, you know, maybe they've taken substances, or maybe it's just, you know, in the middle of the night, maybe they're a little bit sleep deprived. So there's always you know, there's always this idea of art being made when the artist is possibly tapping into a different state of mind, not quite your normal, you know, not the same state of mind when you're queuing up at the bank to pay your bills, you know. So I think that there is a question about state of mind. I'm just gonna have to plug in, my charger's running out.
Yeah, plug in. That's good electricity. Well, the next question, Tony, and I really appreciate your time. We got about 20 more minutes if you can do it. Is you've been creating art for many years. Tell me one major element that has stayed the same and one major element that's changed in the years you've been doing this.
One major element that stayed the same is I'm the person doing all the art.
Yeah.
And oh, we're back. We're back. Hey, can you hear me? Yeah.
Hear you good. Thanks.
Cool. Yeah, and one thing that stayed the same is me, and one thing that's different is I don't know, my openness to do my openness to do a lot more things with photography. I used to define it by mainly being in the darkroom and stuff like that, but I've really evolved into kind of using anything within photography now.
Yeah, I like the word interventions, that it comes up in your process, that you create interventions. How do you define what an intervention is as opposed to just a gallery show?
Yeah, I don't know. I maybe haven't said that there's interventions. Maybe some other people have said that. I mean, I guess Yeah, I don't really know. I wouldn't really know what to say to that, really. Just, I guess, yeah, sometimes the work is a little bit alternative to how other people like to use or look at photography. So
I see.
it's a bit of a left field way, so people can maybe label it in different ways.
I see. Moshe Feldenkrais works with healing and movement. He says it's literally possible to identify a weakness and incorporate it to become a strength rather than we're normally taught to overcome a weakness. Tell me a weakness you turned into a strength.
Um, maybe yeah, maybe beginning. I never really used to like talking about my artwork and my practice, but after quite a few years, I've just, I decided to like embrace it and to like maybe be quite happy and pleased and express myself quite well when talking about my work. Whereas I feel at the beginning of when I started to make works, it was all a lot mumbled and I realized that as an artist out there, you have to be. I believe that you have to kind of give off a persona of being quite confident and believe in your own art. Otherwise, it's hard for other people to believe in your art if you don't feel like you believe in it, either because you're a bit too meek and quiet about it, or if you're just a bit like, oh, you don't want to explain it. I don't think that that gets you anywhere. I think you have to be quite forward about what you do and
Yeah.
know how to talk about it when you need to certain people. So yeah, I wasn't very good at that, but now I think I've turned that around.
You've done really well here, and it brought up two things. Stan Brakhage, great experimental filmmaker, said, let the art speak about it for itself, and then he'd talk for 2 hours.
Yeah.
And then, the new criticism guys in the 60s and 50s in Cambridge said the artist is the last person you want to talk to about their art.
Yeah.
So it's interesting. Anger can be a productive emotion when fill in the blank.
And I know when you need to knock something down or something, anger, when you need to use it, when you need to chop a tree down or something. Sometimes you need anger, when you need a heightened state of emotion or this, my partner, she does art and she kind of references this exploded emotions, these kind of short bursts of heightened state of emotions, almost uncontrollable. But it's just why serial killers suddenly kill, or like people go and do like mass shootings or something. It's quite serious, this idea of exploded emotions, just uncontrollable. And anger, you don't want to lose control, but you can have anger towards something and control it and make it useful. But
Yep.
I think it's difficult.
What's her medium?
She uses quite a few. She does painting and weaving, like latch hook and weaving, but mainly painting and drawings.
In what is the most significant difference between men and women, physical aside?
Uh, yeah, no comment.
That's all right. Yeah, I actually had to drop that for last couple years because of various reasons. How do you find peace of mind?
um, Peace of mind, yeah. Well, I think I mentioned it a bit earlier. Like when I'm doing something quite monotonous and something laborious within my work practice. So I'm very at peace in the dark room with a running water, printing 100 prints and fixing them and doing all that type of thing. Or yeah, moments when I'm making my artwork, of course, gives me peace of mind. Isn't that? I think a lot of people, when they like what they do, or when they're an artist and they're or making a craft or something, they can find peace when they're doing what they've done 100 times. Routine is almost peace.
Routine, yeah. Routine is mine too.
Yeah, I can imagine where you do all this. You set up this. This must be quite peaceful for you, talking to people, doing this interview thing.
Yeah, routine. I'm a bike rider every day. If I have to ride bike 3 times a day, and that turning of the wheel, it's certain things like that. The mechanics of making photography is.
Mm-hmm.
And sort of get lost in the mechanical move, then you can find. I think it's something about a wheel turning or some sort of you brought up the word repetition. Here's 5 questions from Alan Watts, just off the top of your head in a few words. Number 1, who started it all?
Unknown, aliens.
Are we going to make it?
Make it to another planet to colonize the human race. The human race destined to probably blow it, but yeah, I think we'll make it.
3, where do we put it?
Well, yeah, just somewhere else, not on this planet. I think we're moving on.
4, who's cleaning it up?
Well, that's no one. We kind of leave a mess, Mother Nature.
5, is it serious?
No, nothing serious.
Dude, I agree. Frank Zappa said, I'm very serious about being not serious.
Yeah, well, definitely. There's no real point, is there? Go on. I don't know. We can't take it seriously.
Tony, can you forget to die?
Can you forget to die? Yeah, well, you can put it at the back of your mind. Yeah, I think I know a few people that may have forgotten to die. Yeah, I think you can.
Beautiful. If you were walking down the street today and you met yourself as a 12-year-old, what would you say to your 12-year-old self?
Classic question. Yeah, just I don't know. I wouldn't really say anything. But just maybe I'd just walk past.
Yeah. I've had that answer, and I think that's really good. Which way should toilet paper come off the roll, over or under?
I don't know. I've just been in Japan, where the toilets are pretty funky out there.
Are they?
Where you push buttons and stuff. It blow dries. It's so paper. That's old fashioned, man. You just Japanese toilet. You push all the buttons.
Wow. Couple more and we're out of here. Thanks again for your time, Tony. If a publisher was to release your autobiography off the top of your head, what would the title be?
I like abbreviations. So it would be like ACXCTYXPNC or something like that. Some sort of long-winded abbreviation.
Yeah. It's great. Long-winded abbreviation. That's a great oxymoron. That's beautiful. A long one. They want to scent the glue and the binding of your autobiography. What smell?
Oh, you mean like it would have to be that kind of fishy PVC, the one that we all had at school, that classic glue smell. If you want
classic. Classic glue smell. I love that. And so if there was a statue built in your honor, where would you want it displayed and what would it be made of?
Be made of like, would it be, I don't know, copper or iron, you know, something that maybe would rust. So iron, because then it rusts snow and it gets rusty. So yeah, make it out of iron. And, you know, I'm not asking for much, just central London, you know, like Oxford Street or Baker Street, you know, somewhere like that. I grew up around there, so yeah, you know,
Beautiful.
London, yeah.
I love your dedication to your hometown. It is a beautiful thing when people take pride in where they're from, you know.
I mean, yeah, I think so. I think I mean, I enjoy it. Yeah, I enjoy London. I've been lucky, you know, family there, and you know, lived all over different parts of it. Traveled around to other cities, other, you know, places around the world, and yeah, so just nice. You know, I went to study not in London. I really didn't like that. So since then, when I wanted to go back to study there, I had a deeper appreciation for it, and because of taking pictures, it kind of made me, yeah, really, really kind of like it. And then, you know, coming from a big city, people always, you know, they talk to you about big cities. It's just part of it as well, you know. I mean, you know, people like talking about where they're from anyway, so I wouldn't sound overly, but yeah, I love London.
Yeah, the sculptor Carl Andre has this great phrase, sculpture as place. And it seems as though there's some of that resonating with you as like photography as place.
Mm-hmm.
Um, tell me something good you never had and you never want.
Something good. Um, a holiday home, like a
Yeah.
second.
Yeah.
Yeah, really good. Don't really want it because, but
Yeah.
you know, but I can appreciate that. No, maybe I do want a holiday home. No, I'm lying.
That was good. That really I skipped this question. Now it makes me want to go back. You create what you resist is this saying. Bob Goldthwait, the comedian, morphed it into you are what you hate. James Joyce said it's a curious thing as your mind is super saturated with the religion in which you say you disbelieve. And Louis Buñuel nailed it. He said, "Thank God I'm an atheist." So I'm curious of your thoughts on this line. You you create what you resist. In other words, not you, Tony, but one creates what one resists. Any thoughts on that line?
Yeah, it's like, yeah, it's, I don't know, isn't it mankind? Isn't it this idea of, you know, we just can't help but be in this cycle of, you know, we create things that could save the world or make the world a better place, but then we let evil people use them in bad ways. You know, it's just, you know, it's all there for us to all live a perfect life, but then we kind of blow it at the same time. So it's with everything, isn't it? There's like a inner, there's a there's a darker side, an inner insecurity, things like that. When you say all those quotes, it's the same. You know, it's kind of,
Yeah, Carl Jung explored it with the shadow self and all that.
yeah.
It's how we integrate the two. I think that's important. But it's I'm curious because this is metaphorically speaking too. If you were in a vat of vomit up to your neck and someone threw a bag of shit at your face, what would you do?
I don't know. I mean, I wouldn't be in a good state of mind. It wouldn't, you know, it'd just be like, you know, it would be just the straw that broke the camel's back. Maybe I'd like lose it at that point, or maybe it'd just be like whatever. It's a bit of a kind of bizarre scenario, so I wouldn't. I'll be in shock.
Yeah.
Shocked. Yeah.
Well, it's fun how I've asked that for 40 years and how many answers I've gotten. And one person said, I wouldn't be in a situation like that. You know, but the great artist Mike Kelly said, I'd cry.
Yeah, it's true. I think I'd already been crying, but yeah, something along those lines.
What's the cultural shift you see developing today that inspires you?
Cultural shift, inspiration. It's really tough out there to see anything super positive like that. But I'm sure there are some things. I mean, just hopefully globally more balance with like women just being equal to men.
Yeah.
Just, there seems to be a bit more of a cultural shift in that. But globally, I think, but I still think it's quite behind. But those type of just equality for all mankind. That type of thing. Hopefully it's moving forward, and that can be a positive thing, and you see it happening. But you want to see it more with true belief as opposed to people just like kind of just faking it. There's a lot of fake things like that. But overall, I think we're moving in the right direction with that type of thing. So I'd say that.
I like your attitude. And Thornton Wilder said, you sort of touched on this, so I'm interested. Thornton Wilder said in 1928, art is confession. Art is the secret told. But art is not only the desire to tell one's secret, it's the desire to tell it and hide it at the same time.
Yeah.
You've laid your cards on the table for 90 minutes. I'm not insinuating you haven't already answered this. What's it really all about for you?
Yeah, it's true. We've been speaking about it. Probably answered this question a few times, and I think we discussed it quite a lot. I think it's about like we said it before. Now it's like it's about routine, and it's about peace, and it's about being comfortable with yourself, and if you're doing all those things, then the art will just look after itself and continue to be made. So it's those type of things really, because you get to it and I think it's like that really. It's just routine now. I don't know. I've been an artist for quite for long enough now to kind of think that that's it. Just be an artist, and you'll continue being an artist. Sounds really silly, but you know what I mean? Just be an artist, and you'll keep being an artist, and you'll keep being an artist, and and you'll keep making works, and you'll keep doing things, and so that's that. But what is it to be an artist? It's just it's the routine that I've made for myself, and it will evolve and stuff, but just kind of working on that, and that's that really. That's that.
Yeah, it's amazing. It reminds me of Andy Warhol said, don't worry about what people think of your art. Just keep making it.
Yeah, for sure. Exactly. Yeah, that's the thing. I got loads of friends and they do that. They just keep making art. We don't really, whether it's good or bad or not, let somebody else judge that. You just keep doing what you want to do.
Well, how has making art shaped your behavior?
I think it's made me more arty-farty sometimes. I just think sometimes I can act a bit blah blah blah, and and then people go, oh, it's because you're an artist. Like, oh yeah, it's because I'm an artist. It's like I was somewhere and I was looking, and my friend had told me about he told me about pouring a glass of beer, and you're meant to pour it into a glass and make it really bubbly and get a really big head, because actually that takes the extra gas away that they put in the beer. It's got too much gas in it, right? So you're meant to get rid of it when you do that. And so I was looking at some beer, you know, that somebody had poured for me, and I was just looking at the bubbles. And then my friend, they just looked at me and they're like, "Why are you looking at your beer glass like that?" You know? And I kind of said this story, and they're just like, "Oh man, you're such an artist." I was like, okay. So, you know, people just think sometimes that because you're an artist, you're acting like an artist.
Yeah. It's beautiful. Last question. I appreciate your time, Tony.
Yeah.
What gives you the most optimism?
I don't know, I've got some kids and stuff, seeing kids, you know, the youth, you know, seeing their naivety and their beliefs and things like that. Youth culture, you know, young people, the budding spring, you know, this gives you optimism, you know. That's it really. Yeah.
That's the answer I get the most, which is really encouraging. Youth, children, kids. I appreciate that. And just to review, the first question is, what is the best thing for a human being? Wilhelm Reich said the best thing for a human being is another human being. And
Yeah.
the last question is, what gives you the most optimism? They asked Groucho Marx that at the end of his life, and he said other people. So it's sure been fun spending this time with another person. Thank you so much, Tony.
Yeah,
And
that was really great.
I really appreciate you entering the Pixel Fest. We look forward to your entry and showing it in November. And 33 years of Pixel. Another one from England is like, yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Listen, I'll give you a mail if I'm ever in LA or anything.
Oh, please do. I'd love to show you Venice. It's a great art town. And even though I'm going to hit the end broadcast button now, I hope we can keep talking forever and ever.
Yeah, no worries. Catch up.